And welcome back, YouTube, to Life in Prison. My name's Zach. I'm not sure why, but why haven't y'all subscribed yet? Just a quick question. So anyways, so today what we're gonna be getting into is different jobs while being incarcerated. So jail is kind of where, when you first get locked up, right? When you first get arrested, whether you're innocent or guilty, more restricted movement, okay? So with jail, you have about 30 inmates in each pod, or 16, either or, depending on what jail you're at too. Eastern Regional Jail here in Martinsburg, the big pods have 30 inmates, and the small pods have 16, 15. So you're stuck in a pod with all these dudes. So any type of movement is excitement. You go to the gym, you go to medical, or you go to the chapel. That's it. Except for if you were to have a job. Now, most felons, after they're sentenced, they can't really get a job at the jail. It's more or less for the people in the misdemeanor side that are actually getting ready to leave anyways. So those type of things, it keeps you active. The upside to all these jobs in jails and prisons and anything, it actually saves them money, because if you think about it, right? Say these facilities were to hire outside contractors, all right, to clean the halls, to cook all the food, to do the maintenance and stuff. On average, it's $10 to $30, $40 an hour. Or we can pay the inmates absolutely nothing to do it, right? Saves us money and gets the job done. They're really thinking smart on that one. So in jail, whenever you get to work, you really don't get paid for it. All right, it's kind of like getting time knocked off your sentence. So if you got a 5-year sentence, with good behavior, you can get it knocked in half. You're out in 2.5. Necessary, work all this stuff and not get paid for it. But in prison, you do get paid for it. Except for it's not a lot. So first step, you're in jail. I've had laundry jobs. Now, mind you, with these jobs, it gives you free reign. It gives you movement. So if you're good, if you behave yourself, then you have more opportunities to go out and do stuff, make moves and whatnot. What I used to do for fun is, so we have these big industrial dryers. All right, they're massive. So as long as you don't close the door, but if you put your finger in this little button that knock off the sensor, then you can keep the door open, but it'll work, and so it starts spinning. So a lot of us would climb in these things and see how many rotations you could go around. I think the numbers on the walls, 900 something spins. Someone went around. I only made it 300. You get real dizzy. So I've worked in the kitchen. When I finally got to Huttonsville, though, my first job was in the kitchen. Now, mind you, the difference between prison and jail is, in prison, you got people that are never going home. So they try to make it most comfortable for you, because at the end of the day, they're not going to want a bunch of dudes that are never getting home to start acting up. The cutting knives, they're chained to the table. So if you got mad at somebody, you couldn't stab them with it, because you can only go so far. You can't do anything with it. But when you worked in the front of the kitchen, they had these milk dispensers, rubber nipple thing. So they had these plastic knives. They're white plastic knives, but they're real thick. And I mean, they're a very, very thick plastic. So me being who I am, I like playing, I didn't mind playing with knives, especially being in the atmosphere that I was in. I got well adapted to know how to make knives and use them. You know what I mean? You can't just go in and start doing what you want. You gotta more or less build faith in these people that are around you so that they know that you're not up to no good. So after a couple months, I found out where they stored these plastic knives, because they'd give you 2 at a time per each shift. They give you 2 at a time, and then at the end of the day, they would collect those and then check them off. But it's literally locked in this big, massive fridge/freezer storage space. And they open it up, get exactly what they need, and then shut it, lock it, so that we don't get a hold of it. We do, but they don't know that. On the right side had all these different utensils, spatulas, spoons, weird little knife things, you know. Anyways, so it just so happened that right there, right in the door, was a massive box of plastic knives. Jackpot! So I ended up, you know, and where this storage container was, it was a blind spot. And the reason why plastic knives are good is because in prison, they have metal detectors at a lot of places. So if you come out from the big yard, if you come out through the kitchen or anywhere, come from the north-south hall, they can put you through these metal detectors at any time. Plus, if you're also gang affiliated, or if you're known for stabbing people or having knives, you're going to be one of the first people they put on the wall coming through the crossover, because, you know, they're trying to get every knife they can off the compound. They don't want knives on the compound. So what we would do is we take the insoles out of our shoes, and you could get a hold of glue and whatnot, but if you did good enough, you could take the insoles out of your shoes, all right, dig out a little divot in the center of your shoe, like in the sole on the inside, right? Dig out a little divot. That way you can put the knives in there so that they don't move at all. Then put your insole back in the shoe, because what they would do, they'd run you through the metal detector. You take off your shoes before you even walk through the metal detector. So then they had a table. I had all the shoes laid out on the table. They'd hit your shoe like this, boom, to make sure nothing would slide out, right? They'd hit your shoe, go like that again to make sure you didn't hear anything or anything would shake or jiggle, and then you were able to go and get your shoes. I distributed them to the dudes that was in the chow hall. Some of the guys that I messed with, they already kind of knew what was going on. You know what I mean? Like, they knew that day, at that time, that I was going to try to do this, and they needed to be there to more or less mule these knives out of the kitchen. Because whenever you leave at the end of the day for work, they pat you down. You know, I got 12 plastic knives in my pocket. Yeah, I'm going straight to the hole again. I cleaned the chow hall, you know, while meals are going on. So the reason why it was a good job, it only paid $62 a month. Now, mind you, $62 a month in prison for a job, it's not bad. One of the best paying jobs in West Virginia prison system, though, is making the license plates, and it's over $100 a month. And that you know, in prison, that's good money. So working in the kitchen, it wasn't the best paying job, but you had access to everybody. If you needed to get at somebody, because north side and south side are separated. A lot of times prisons, you can't, if you live over here, you're not gonna be able to get to somebody over here. It's just how it is. It's you have movement, but it's kind of controlled movement. But this way, I could talk to anybody and everybody, because they would all come through the chow hall. So that's one of the reasons why I took that job, is because I had a lot of, you know, it's easy to talk to people for me. Plus, sometimes I need to get at people. I guess the CEOs was starting to, I'm not gonna say starting to catch on, but by then they knew who I was as an individual, and they kind of knew how I worked and I moved. You know what I mean? I can punch an inmate in the face and stab him and it'll be fine. But if you touch one of them COs, now you got a crazy outside charge, like, and then all the COs are gonna end up probably killing you for you putting your hands on one of them. You know what I mean? So my motto was, I'm gonna stay out the CO's face. I'm not gonna go up and talk to them all the time. That's one thing you don't do. You don't want to be a lingerer. You're always over there by the COs trying to talk to them, because unless you're trying to get with one of them, or get one of them on the team, either bring something in, or if it's a female, hey, you in prison, you already know what's going on. Bates isn't over here, but he's doing all this over there. Okay, we're gonna watch him. So end up getting hit, bringing out pounds of beef. So in prison you have, it's all khaki stuff. Khaki pants, khaki button up, white t-shirt, and then whatever shoes you can buy. And stuff it all in a bread bag, because they're real long, alright? So you can stuff a couple pounds of stuff in there. You stick it on the inside of your pant leg, like on the inside going down your leg, and then you tie the top part of the bag to your belt loop. So it's not gonna fall down. It's kind of just, wherever you want it at. You can tie a little bit tighter, bring it up, or loosen it out to, put it down farther. So you walk around looking like you got ham hocks because you got thighs full of beef. So I thought I was being slick. No. Messing with my belt, getting ready to drop the first load out my pant leg, I get one of these. And I look over my shoulder and it's the CO. He catches me like dead on dead. Like, it's one of those things. I started laughing. I was like, ha, busted. And he was like, yeah, come on, what are you doing, Bates? I'm like, man, I'm trying to eat, man. I've been pod janitor. So with pod janitor, it was, you can clean the showers, clean the tables, clean the stairs, clean the windows. It gets, I think it was like $35 a month. It was less work, obviously less money. Hooked up all the homies with some good, smell good, to put in they cell. End up going to the hole. That's where Lieutenant Kingsley was at. So in the hole, it's a whole nother world. Okay, you got some dudes that are back there some dudes have been back there for 20, 30 years, and they're never going to get out for the rest of their life. They're literally going to stay in the SHU, which is Special Housing Unit, or ADSEC, Administrative Segregation. You're never, in some of these situations, you're never getting out of the hole, ever. Getting another janitor's job, after being there for a few months of being ADSEC for some weapons and some other stabbing stuff, every time, the lieutenant would walk by my cell, I'd be like, hey, LT, what's up? I'm trying to work. I'm a good worker. I'll work. You won't have no problems out of me. After a few months, literally almost every day of me saying this, he finally gave me a shot. And mind you, I was back here in the months for about 10 months that time anyways. So I made sure that I didn't mess up. Or I made sure that I didn't mess up in front of him. That way I got to get out my cell. Whenever they bring someone new into the hole, they go through all your stuff, okay? They go through everything you have, everything you own. They're tearing it apart, piece by piece, paper by paper, sock by sock, panties by panty, everything. They're going through everything. And if you have something you're not supposed to have, they throw it in the trash. I was able to get into this trash and food, because once you come to the hole, if you also have food, commissary, all that's getting thrown away if it's not perishable items. So chips, tunas, like the good stuff, sodas. So with being in the back, they store everybody's stuff in these big bins. So with me having to move all this stuff, being back there in the back where the trash is at with all these bins, like, yeah, I'm gonna take a bunch of stuff. I mean, yeah, I know, shouldn't be stealing in prison, like, this stuff is getting thrown away anyways. It's in the trash. So now I'm just transporting it from the trash can into my cell or into my box. So if Billy Bob over here wants to get a note over to dude over there. You can't do it. Okay, well, hey, white boy, come here. I got this for you if you take this over here. You know, sometimes you take the chance, right? You know, go to talk to someone's door, just, you know, not be obvious. Talk to a couple people, you know, just walk around the pod, and then you slide it right into their door. Boom. Like, and I mean, it's like, because you take toilet paper, and it's like how you weave hair. Take 3 strands and just kind of weave it over each other like this. You do the same thing with a wick. And that's how it makes the toilet paper real tight. So once it starts burning, it's a slow burn. So you could have a nice long wick like this long, and it lasts you a couple hours if you were smoking in your cell and stuff like that. Having a lighter, I mean, it's not uncommon, but being in the hole, you're not going to have your lighter. So what we do is whenever people would come in with, you know, CD players and stuff like that, you take the batteries, take AA batteries from them. Some person would have, you know, a set of batteries in their cell, and mind you, while you're in the hole, the only thing that you're allowed to have is your pillow, your blankets, 2 books, and your clothes and some hygiene. You're not allowed to have a CD player. You're not allowed to have no batteries. So someone has the batteries, hiding them somewhere. What I used to do whenever I used to have batteries at the time, you get a state bar of soap, and it's like an aqua color. It's real thick. It's about this long. It's about this thick. So you dig out the center of the soap bar like a square, like make a little grave. All right, dig it out. Keep all the shavings. You got to keep all that. Take the batteries. You stick the batteries inside the center of the soap. Then you stick a little piece of cardboard or plastic over top of that. Then all the little shavings that you now have, you put those back on top. Then you get a little wet, but like the whole bar of soap wet. So it looks bubbly. So when it dries though, you have a little compact compartment case for your batteries. So when they come and shake down, they pick up your bar of soap, you know, look underneath, make sure nothing's there, and they set it back down. Hiding spot. So get a couple of these razors. Then you break them in half. Break the razor in half, and you put one on the positive side and one on the negative side. And once you start sticking them together, you know, I mean, it starts heating up, and so that's how you light your stuff. And, you know, while you're in the hole, K2 is one of those, this snape was one of the commodities. It's like, you have nothing to do but sit across and sign to people all day. Well, a lot of people just smoke and just chill out in their cell. I want to say that was my last job there at Huttonsville. So when I finally got shipped up to Mount Olive, though, that's where some of the jobs get a little bit crazier. You get, as I said, you can do welding classes. They have an auto body shop. I wasn't low enough classification, so I couldn't go outside the fence. So my job was, I would push this old dude named Ben around in a wheelchair. So this guy had been in the prison system for about 34 years. At the time, he was in his 60s, but he was very much deteriorating. He had a life sentence, 15 to life, but the circumstances of his case was a little weird. So every time he kept coming up for parole, he was denied. But he didn't understand this, so he had hope beyond belief that he'd be able to one day get his charges overturned. Unfortunately, he had actually died a couple of years ago after I had gotten released. Natural causes, just old age. But anyways, so my job was, I was his caretaker. So if he needed medication, I would have to put him in a wheelchair and wheel him down to med call. Or if he needed chow, I would either take him down the chow and get his special tray, or I would just take his card along with my work card, or a piece of paper actually saying that, you know, I'm an inmate assistant, more or less, saying I'm looking after somebody. It's okay to give me 2 trays. So with these ID cards, it had a barcode on it, and you'd scan it. So when you go up the chow, you'd put your ID card up to the window, they'd scan it, let them know that, okay, this person came in to get chow today at this time. That way you couldn't come back through and try to get another tray, because if so, it would, whenever you scan it, it'd pop up red. So sometimes people would get very ingenious. You gotta realize people sitting there all day, they have nothing to do but think. So what they would do is they'd get other people's IDs, go down to the library, photocopy the ID, right? Get the little barcode off of it, and then get tape and then stick it over their IDs. Because there's some people that wouldn't get up for breakfast, or wouldn't get up for lunch, or wouldn't get up for dinner. You know, some people had money like that and they could just eat, you know, out of their box or from the store, just because they didn't want to eat the state food, because, you know, it'll mess up your stomach if you're not used to it. So people would sell off their trays. You know, I'm not going to get the food anyway, so what I'll do is I'll sell you a week's worth of trays for $20 or whatever. Here's my ID card. Well, you really can't use someone else's ID because it has their picture on the ID. So what they would do is they take their barcode, put the tape on it, and since you're taking the ID and sticking it up to a glass window for them to scan, these food workers, the Airmark workers, aren't really paying attention to the barcode. They're just staring at the photo to make sure it matches your face. So if you got, you know, a piece of paper with a barcode taped on there, I mean, it's not noticeable, but I mean, if you were to look at it, you'd be able to tell. But from being that far away, they didn't. You know, that was some people's hustle. They'd hustle off breakfast trays or lunch trays and whatnot if you didn't have money. Yeah, my parents, they did look out for me. I'm not gonna lie, they did look out for me the whole time. I'm grateful that they did, but at the end of the day, trying to live off $30, $40 a month in prison, it's hard. You know what I mean? Just hygiene alone, it's very, very hard. Another thing they start getting hip to is, so in the cells, you know, you have your corners. Well, these cinder blocks, sometimes they weren't cut right, and they would be a little recessed inside a little bit. So another way you'd be able to hide things would be to stick it in the crack. Like if you had a knife, for instance, you'd stick it in the crack of the wall in the cell, you know, either down low or somewhere up high. And you wedge it in there. Then you take the state issue toothpaste, because it's kind of white, but it's kind of like an off-white, the same color as the walls were. So you get a couple things of those, and you kind of patch it up as if you're doing drywall. You'd smear it out, even it up with the rest of the concrete, and then let it dry. Now you've got a knife hanging there on the wall where no one can see it, and if you need it, it's just toothpaste. It's kind of hard. Just slide your finger up, it'll pop it right out. Now you got your knife. So yeah, that was definitely my last job being incarcerated. I'd gotten out July of 2016, and I was up at Mount Olive until about January through about March. I think they shipped me out at March, because, you know, then they realized, hey, this dude's got a 1 to 10 sitting up here with these guys with, you know, 1,000-year sentences. We got to get him out of here. We need that bunk. You know what I mean? So after I'd gotten shipped back to Huttonsville, I only had a few months until I discharged, and I really honestly didn't really feel like, I'm not going to say feel like working, because at the time I had this whole arm complete, some of my chest, and then from here up was done, alright? So me being who I am, I didn't want to leave out with unfinished business, more or less. At first, honestly, I was going to stop at my elbows, you know, not have anything on my lower arms. But then I got to think, I'm like, you know, man, I'm a felon anyways. Like, tattoos is going to be the last thing they're going to be worried about once they start pulling up background and stuff, and all the satellites and NSA starts going off, and, you know what I mean, start bee-boobs and bop-bops. Like, now, shout out to Cameron Moore. He's actually out on the streets doing good. He's a phenomenal tattoo artist. So he ended up laying all this down for me for free, just because he kind of wanted his name to get out there, and, you know, he messed with me, he had a lot of respect for me, and, you know, he didn't have to do what he did, because, you know, this is a couple $100 worth of a sleeve. Plus, not only would he have gotten in trouble for doing the tattoo in the first place, but, you know, if you have anything that could be deemed gang affiliated, you know what I mean? I have, you know, I've got some things in my arm that are affiliated, and the morning of I was getting out, I ended up getting, because I had a cover up. Now, I need a cover above the cover up, But I had like vampire bite marks, and now it's lips. Well, that morning, Chewy was finishing my neck up, so as I'm walking out the door, my bag's packed. There's nothing that they can do to me. There's nothing they can say to me. They cannot hold me any longer. I'm out the door. A lot of MCOs were happy that I was leaving, for sure. And after you being around for a few years, people get to know you. They notice things. So I'm walking out, regular white T-shirt, and my arm is glaring red. My neck glaring red. They're like, basically, where'd that come from? And I said, nothing you can do. I'll never see you again. Gone. Last of that. I was nervous that they was gonna end up going into these people's cells and shaking them down just because they know that, hey, someone up here is running. But thankfully they didn't. I would have felt bad if I would have got people bopped and now I'm out on the streets. My parents were very, very Christian oriented. All right, they don't believe in piercings. They don't believe in tattoos. Your body's a temple of the Lord, and you shouldn't deface it. So during the whole prison time, I didn't want them to know that I was using, some of the money that they were sending me, plus, some of the other money that I hustled up to get tattoos. After I got sent off to prison, my parents didn't come and visit me. It was too far away. It was 4 or 5 hour drive one way. My parents are older. They're, in their 70s now. But every time I sent pictures home, I had to stand with my arms behind my back, a typical prison pose, just so that they didn't see my arms and see all the tattoos. So, mind you, when I'm walking out of prison, let's see, my mom was at the front, and then it was my sister and my nephew, and I do believe my brother-in-law was there too. But they hadn't seen me for 5 years. I come out the prison doors and I am just tatted up, and my mom, I could tell by the look on her face that she was very, very disappointed. Where I work, I don't have to cover my tattoos. Now, when I first got in the medical field, I worked at an eye center. I had to cover my tattoos. They didn't like that. But at the urgent care, it doesn't matter as long as it's not offensive or anything derogatory. Anything bad, they obviously don't want to be shown. But all my stuff is fine. So you get some of these older patients that come in, and they'll take one look at me, and I've had some ask me, how did I get a job there, or like I like messing with them, like, oh, I was just walking by, seen a hiring sign, and I asked, hey, I need a job, let me get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but the color of your skin and what's on your skin isn't going to change who you are as a person or your personality. Like, I treat anybody and everybody with the same amount of respect. I don't care where you're coming from, backs of life. I'm going to treat you with respect. I'm here to help you. At the end of the day, my skin color isn't going to change that at all. I would just hope that eventually, people will start to realize that and stop judging off sight. It'd be so much easier for their life. Just because you're locked up doesn't mean you have to give up on all hope. You have opportunities. They have a lot of college courses now in prison where you can get accounting, finance. Let's see, they have a business program. There's a lot of good things that they try to help prisoners accomplish while they're still locked up. So when they get out, they already kind of have their foot in the door. They kind of have an idea of, hey, I can do this, but I might need a little bit of help. Honestly, the hardest part of my day is drawing someone's blood, the phlebotomy part of it. Even though I can do it and, I'm pretty good at it, to be honest with you, it's still nerve-wracking knowing that you're taking this needle and you're sticking into someone's vein, and if you mess up, they're going to feel it. You're not going to feel anything. It's not affecting me, it's affecting them. And that's why I feel that stressful, because if I mess up, it's going to hurt them. Their vein's going to swell up. It's black and blue. I'm sure a lot of y'all have had someone mess up on your veins, and it's no fun. You have to start here before you can try to climb here. Because I feel like with a lot of felons that come out of prison, we feel obligated, right? We have a lot of pressure because everyone's always like, you need to get back into society. You need to do this. You need to do that. Okay. Well, sometimes it's easier than others. Sometimes you really can't get that chance because people won't give you the opportunity to prove yourself that you have changed. And, as I said before, a lot of people like to say that they're all for reform and for change, but the way the rule books are written, they can't do anything about it because people just don't want to give us a chance, I wish that'd be a little bit different. Just like it doesn't make any sense how I can get a job where they take my taxes, but yet I can't vote in the state of West Virginia for anything. I don't know how that makes any sense, considering taxpayers' dollars pays for these people's pensions and this and that, but yet we can't vote. I don't know. It's a cluster. The way the laws are wrote, you can't unwrite them. But as before, and as always, I want you to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification button so you're first informed when I upload. This is just a little glimpse of what jobs are available and what things you can do while you're incarcerated. So as always, I send my utmost love, loyalty, and respect. Keep your heads up, alright?